Have you guys heard of the new show on the Count Network, the Ichiban Sweetcast?
It's the brand new New Japan Pro Wrestling podcast starring the International Wrestling Grand Prix. That's me, your good friend Curtis Spears.
And me, your bad friend Rafe Hewson. And we're here to talk about everything New Japan Pro Wrestling, reacting to everything, getting worked up, getting very happy, sometimes crying. Kind of like something else we used to do, right?
Oh, yeah. That was the old Okada Shorts podcast, right?
Ah, that's right. And if you love that show, you're going to love this show because it's exactly the same show.
Yeah, we just had to change the name.
Yeah, we did. But you can check it everywhere on a social media handle that we haven't made yet.
Yeah, we're really new to this. So what you can do is search on your favorite podcast catcher of choice. Look for the Ichiban Sweetcast.
Sweetcast, Ichiban.
You're listening to a Countout Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ballot.
Are you not recording?
I am recording right now. I'm recording on Audacity right over here because I don't need to record the video. I'm just going to record Audacity.
My brain.
This guy, amateur over here, amateur hour.
I mean, to be fair, I use StreamYard and just press record, okay?
That's fair.
Okay, sorry.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ballot. I am your host, Ryan Knightsey. Thank you so much for subscribing to the Countout Patreon. We are here today with a guest that I know very well. He is one half of the hit podcast Ring Post Radio, and he does a bunch of other stuff regarding Joshi. He is Scotty Edwards. Scotty, how you doing?
It's only fitting that I'm here to talk about Cody Rhodes.
Yes.
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to finally be on here. When you asked, like you presented this idea to me before, you actually started doing it.
Sure.
And you gave me first dibs. And I was really banking on WrestleMania working out.
I was so nervous that it wouldn't, and that Cody would lose. And then I was like, well, I don't know what we talk about that. I mean, we still talk about him, but
rough.
Yeah, it would have been a different vibe for sure, gotta say. Yeah. But yes, we're here today discussing the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame ballot, I guess you could say. The Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame candidacy of one Cody Rhodes. This is his first time on the ballot, like every person on the ballot. So yeah, I guess, like you said, when I came up with the Inception idea, we had a laundry list of people on that are the first timers on the ballot. I gave you first pick. You immediately picked Cody Rhodes. Why, Scotty, did you pick Cody Rhodes? What is your connection to the wrestler?
Cody Rhodes is someone that I've watched his entire career. Like when I started watching wrestling is the same year he debuted, which was 2007. And I think, like, out of everyone joining the ballot this year for the first time, he is the most interesting wrestler because, I mean, it helps what happened recently, but he's done so many different things. He's won so many different world titles. He helped create a company, right? Like, there's a lot, and he's now main evented 3 WrestleManias. He has, you like me have listened to many Observer ballot episodes, right?
Sure.
I listen to a lot when Dave's talking about it, and like they're going over every person's reasoning why or why not they might make it. And for me, Cody was the most interesting, truthfully, with or without the win. Because without the win, it would have been like, well, you have this, this, and this. With the win, it's like, I almost feel like he might be first ballot at this point, but that'll be the conversation we have here, isn't it?
Sure. Yes, we have a lot to talk about in terms of Cody Rhodes. He has, I agree. I think he has a very good case. I think Cody Rhodes, there is a chance he could be a first ballot. I don't know, if not first ballot, I think he might go in at some point. He has a lot of very interesting things, and a lot of, and I think the big important part of his case is just his, obviously what he's done in WWE for the past couple of years has been great, but it's the usual new thing of the Observer Ballot of, number one, how people treat Ring of Honor, and then number two, how people treat AEW. Obviously, everyone that votes for the Observer loves or understands the importance and the longevity and all these things of WWE, but it's the importance of these other companies that will really put together his case. So let's get into it. I like this format that I ended our last Ballot episode with Gerard DiTrolio talking about Kento Miyahara, a really great episode. If you have not listened to it, please go check it out. At the very end of it, we just quickly went through and graded various 6 different aspects of the person's career. And I think I'm gonna use that as sort of the structure for the episode because I sort of liked it. This is a weighted grade where some things are weighted more than others. This grade system I just made up on the spot one time, and this is what we're going with. We have wrestling ability, we have promo work, we have drawing power, we have historical significance, we have longevity, and we have influential. How influential they are to other wrestlers or other people or whatever. Obviously, this isn't the full, this isn't exactly what the criteria fully is, but I think it's a more detailed explanation of the criteria. If you don't know, the criteria, of course, to get into the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame that voters should consider is that these wrestlers need a, quote, combination of drawing power, being a great in-ring performer, or excelling in one's field in pro wrestling, as well as having historical significance in a positive manner. Candidates should have something to offer in all 3 of these categories mentioned above, or be so outstanding in 1 or 2 that they deserve inclusion. So let's start off here with Cody Rhodes and talk about his wrestling ability. This is just pure by-the-numbers wrestling. How do you think Cody Rhodes is as a professional wrestler?
My best way to always say with Cody is he gets it in the ring. He's not the most athletic guy. He's not, he's not the work ratey guy, but he can have great matches. He's a great storyteller.
Sure.
I think he's one of the better storytellers, especially in this age of wrestling. And the match I always like to look to with Cody, Cody has a good amount of matches to look to, especially over the past couple of years, that I think really set the bar for who he is in the ring. It is the match with Dustin Rhodes at the first Double or Nothing that I always look to as this feels like the perfect match, right? And the way they created that story and told the story in the ring, to me, it's the first classic in AEW history. And, you can never take that away from Cody. And then he has other great matches along the way in his AEW career. You go back, he has some great matches in his first WWE run that I always like to bring up, which are, again, are very story-based. I always bring up his tag team match alongside Goldust against The Shield.
Yep.
I think that was a Battleground.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it was at Battleground. I always like to bring that up because that felt like, what potential does Cody have? And he reached it all in that one match. And then you have the many other matches that people love, like the Sammy Guevara ladder match. He can go that crazy, but I always think his bag is these storytelling matches. Even the Jericho title match, which I think is very overlooked in AEW history, especially the build and all that, but that's a different conversation.
Yeah, I think when it comes to that story of the Jericho match, it comes down to sort of the result of it, and the ever-present decision of the stipulation is more talked about than the build itself. I totally agree. Cage match and both the Wrestling Observer Dave and Cage match have the Dustin Rhodes match as his number 1 match of all time. Dave Meltzer has given it 5 stars. He's also given 5 stars to the Sammy Guevara match, in the ladder match, of course.
His last match, right?
And which was his last match. Great point. Yeah. His first and last match, he got 5 stars in AEW. Also, his Seth Rollins match in Hell in a Cell this torn pec.
Storytelling again.
Storytelling. He also gave 5 stars. He gave the War Games match, which you know what part of he has in that, but it's certainly part of it. 4 3/4, and I have here because I was just looking in the States, a match against Okada at the, I believe it was G1 special or something, where he got 4.5 stars. And also, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that has now been, this was put in right before WrestleMania. That is no longer his 5th best match. His now 5th best match is the WrestleMania Night 2 main event against Roman Reigns, also at 4.75 stars. Cage match, Dustin Rhodes, 9.4. Rollins and Hell in a Cell, 9.08. His first match of Rollins at WrestleMania, 8.61. His second match of Rollins is 8.57. And I skipped one match to bring it up as well. His match against Brody Lee, the dog collar match in AEW. Yes.
Also fantastic. He really entered the world of like great in-ring, and this shouldn't come as a shock, when he left more so. Like when I look back at his previous WWE run, I really only think of that tag match in terms of like his great matches. But once he left, especially in AEW, he just absolutely killed it. And he has maybe the most memorable WWE matches the past few years, which I think, you know, probably isn't debated at this point. That cage, I love that cell match because it's again, the story of him being broken down and what he was able to do in that match. I know that's very, that match is talked about a lot. Like some people don't like it. Some people do.
Sure.
But to me, that is Cody. That match is Cody to a T. Like he is insane in many ways, but he's going to do anything to tell his story. And it's really the beauty of his wrestling. It's why I do wish that things didn't change like they did in AEW, because he had many more great matches with so many other guys, but he's still doing it in WWE, which was kind of a impossible thing for a long time, it felt like.
Yeah, I think sort of what we're talking about here, how I feel about Cody, is that his peaks are really great. And I think what you're right is that, you know, a lot of that peaks has to come down to the stories being told, right? WrestleMania, Brody Lee, Dustin, even Sammy to a large extent with that ladder match. Seth Rollins with the Hell in a Cell, where that was the third match in their series, but the story, not just the story, but I guess that's not really a story per se, but working off of an injury created, really helped cement that. That being said, I think his highs are highs, but we can't ignore for the very long time this guy being called the 3-star general. 3 stars are nothing to sneeze at, right? They're solid, solid consistency, solid pro wrestling, but he is known as the 3-star general.
Yes. In a way that almost says his floor isn't bad, though. It is consistent, right? Like he's not going to have a bad match. He's just not, you know, for a long time there, it was like, well, you know, it's a fine match. It's a fine match, you know, and it almost never mattered who the opponent was. So that does take away from his time, because he had a lot of New Japan matches. You didn't hear me name many of them. You know, it's like, that's the reality of Cody. And I think it is very much needed to bring up here. And maybe that's part of why, you know, all the matches we're highlighting is him telling a story. In New Japan, he never had that deep of a story, in my opinion, to tell. You know, he was obviously just part of Bullet Club and whatnot. Obviously, he had the Kenny Omega.
I was about to bring that up. Is that
Honor, by the way?
His one big story, it feels like he told in New Japan, was Kenny versus Cody. And that match obviously did not happen in New Japan. That happened in Ring of Honor at Supercard of Honor, was this 12 in 2018. That match got, where is it? The 4.25 stars from Dave, 7.52 out of 85 votes on Cage Match. That match, many people would consider the biggest drawing match in the history of Ring of Honor before, I guess you can consider All In, or even before when it's purchased by Tony Khan, in front of, if I have here in front of me proper, let's get Cody's attendance report that I've put together. That was a sold out crowd of 5,879 people. That match. Which was a record for Ring of Honor. So, same sort of thing. When he builds the story, he is able to, for the most part, deliver, I think, strong, not even for the most part, I think that might be a little weak, but when he's able to build a story proper, he knows how to build a story, he knows how to deliver on those wrestling matches, and he's, as we saw with Ring of Honor, drawing. Now, we talked about the consistency. I would say you see teases of his wrestling ability really coming together at the end of his WWE run, pre-Stardust. You get glimpses at it again in Ring of Honor. And, obviously he's in the USA and Canada category. So, we'll give him a feather in the cap for some stuff in Japan, but ultimately in America, obviously. Mm-hmm. And then AEW, I think, is ultimately where he shines, even though he is still very much the 3-star general.
Very much so.
And then WWE, it feels like, again, for the most part, maybe a 3-star general on television, but for the most part, in these pay-per-views, really great matches.
Yeah. When he has a big match now, it's like, oh, this is going to be great. Mm-hmm. Right? It's like, there's no question of, oh, this might be okay. Like, it's going to be great. And a match that you and me both really enjoy that I don't think we're bringing up here is pre-AEW, is pre return to WWE, and that is the match with Nick Aldis at All In.
Yeah.
Another great match, arguably the best match on that show. Truthfully, obviously timing made sure the main event wasn't the best match on the show, but still, and again, we go back to there was a story to it, and
I would, at the very least, if not the best match, arguably the most memorable.
And that's something I think he does really well with his matches. Yeah. You remember his matches. I'm not going to name any names here, but some people you watch like a great match from and you may never remember it. I think you're going to be more likely to remember Cody versus Nick Aldis than the 5-star match between, say, Ospreay and Speedball.
Sure.
Right?
I get what you're saying.
Obviously, we know which match is the better match.
Yeah, granted, Will Ospreay, high work rate, great wrestling ability.
Yeah, I remember a lot of his matches.
Able to knock out these 5 stars over and over again. Yeah. But it is your argument is basically Will Ospreay is a buffet of great food, while Cody Rhodes doesn't have the buffet. But you might get a really good cheeseburger or something, and then right over here is like lobster. Yeah, it's like, oh, here we go.
You may not get a lot for your buck, but it's gonna be worth it. Yeah. Right? It's like it may be a small portion, but it's gonna be worth the ridiculous amount of money you paid for it. But that's not to take anything away from Ospreay. I think that's just me more giving credit to what Cody does in his big matches.
They're completely different wrestlers. Will Ospreay, when you think about his wrestling ability, you think of he is one of the best workers today, right?
Right. He's a first ballot.
Easy.
Hall of Famer.
100%.
That's not a question.
Dave
Meltzer might just kill someone if that doesn't happen. That's just the truth. But I just needed to use that comparison because I feel like he's the most talked about person when talking about the Observer. Truthfully, I just feel like Ospreay is connected to that. So it feels like bringing up him in this scenario when talking about Cody versus Nick Aldis is a reasonable spot. In no world am I going to say Cody versus Nick Aldis was the better match, but I surely remember it more than Speedball and Ospreay.
Will
shot at TNA as well.
Yeah, that also happened. So the Observer entry to be eligible in the ballot is, I think it's a certain number of years in the industry, but also 35 years old is typically the initial cutoff point. Cody, 38. Will Ospreay, 30. Will Ospreay's not eligible to be on the ballot for another 5 years. That's crazy. By the way,
it's again very different, roads in their career. No pun intended. But but it's fun because those two arguably are the most important wrestlers of this generation.
Sure. I think that's
very different reasons, but
yeah. He's not necessarily, when you look at the guy, he is not necessarily when you think of wrestling ability, obviously everyone thinks about work rate, like you're talking about with Will Ospreay, but I think you're right that he is weirdly underrated when it comes to wrestling because he is very consistently good. And when he's able to cultivate a story, which ultimately is the input, the whole idea of wrestling a lot of the times, when he's able to elevate and cultivate a story, 9 times out of 10, he freaking nails it.
Yeah, exactly.
If you had to give a grade, and you can do pluses and minuses and whatnot, to Cody Rhodes' wrestling ability, what would you give it?
I think like B+. Is that fair? I feel because it's very interesting because recency bias really helps him.
Sure. That's fair.
So I probably actually will settle around the B. Because of that, because I do have to remember the early part of his career, right? Like, and the Stardust period. It wasn't until right before AEW came along that he started putting on like the classics per se, but I always felt like it was there. It took opportunity and the right chances that he ultimately created for himself.
Yeah, we're basically talking about, like, when we talk about his wrestling ability kind of peaking or, really cultivating, 2018 to now. So basically a 6-year period, right?
Yeah, so I think, like, B's pretty, average. Like, C's obviously average, but I think he's better than that.
Yeah, when I think of a 3, I think
his
of a B.
His peaks are much higher. His peaks are much higher than a lot of people, And again, the way he tells stories, and for me, a lot of the time with my favorite matches, there is a story being told. So it speaks to me a little bit more. But B, I think, is comfortable for me at least.
All right, let's move it right along. I typically come in with examples, and I apologize. I was not able to get them prepped for today's episode. But let's talk about his promo work. Something that I think... Same sort of time frame. I think like 2018, really. I'm not going to go back to like Stardust and all these sort of things. Those are interesting promos, I guess. And he was able to get the character over something, but it's ultimately like that peak. And we already kind of alluded to this idea of like he's a very good promo, and the Chris Jericho Cody Rhodes feud in AEW sort of, I think, showcased that to a lot of people of like, oh, this guy can be a very good promo. Something that is, I think, slept on because of the outcome of that match. How do you think he is at being? How do you think he is on the mic?
I think he has a genuine. He is the most genuine promo in wrestling today for me. In terms of like. When he speaks, you listen. If that makes sense, like everything he says has purpose. Now it got funny in AEW, right? Like that is the thing we have to look at here. Like when he said, "What do you guys want to talk about?" That promo will never be forgotten by me. But there's a reason that someone like a Dave Meltzer calls him one of the greatest baby faces of all time, and it's because of what he is able to break down himself while speaking, and he kind of gets mocked for this, of course, the tears and the whole, I like to call his Dusty reaction face where he goes but I like, he locks me in when he's speaking, and I think that's something that a lot of the greats have. He's in a class with the likes of, I think Samoa Joe's better than him, for example, at least these days.
Sure.
But for a baby face, and especially baby faces,
especially a modern baby face, which feels very rare.
He feels like a baby face in the world where baby faces and heels don't matter anymore. And that is because of his promo work. It's not because of his wrestling. It's because of his promo work and the stories that he's able to tell through the microphone. But at the same time, you do have to include his entire career. And like you said, yes, we look from 2018 on. And you have to look at his AEW run from start to finish.
Sure.
There's some bumpy times in there.
I was about to say, is as many highs, and we talked about and praised that a lot of the matches really hit when the stories are told, and the stories are told through that promo, through those microphones. You know, so that is very, very helpful in his when it comes to his matches and whatnot, his storytelling ability. And you know, you believe him a lot, and there's a lot of things that when he talks, you hear him listen, or you hear him and whatnot. But you're right. There are moments, especially in AEW, that later run. You know, I don't know exactly. I don't quite remember the beginning of it, but I definitely remember the very early on of that A Go feud being a lot of stinkers. The Liberty promo, the MLK promo, a lot of stuff of like, I know for a fact that he is speaking or trying to speak genuinely here, but it's so overwrought. And I think that's one of the downsides of Cody is that he has the ability to be too hokey, I guess would be the best way.
Yeah.
That
he old school baby face.
Yeah, where he goes too far over. He overfills and his baby. You're like, all right, guy. All right,
man. Please stop.
Yeah.
There's been times where like I've listened to this promo, so I'm like, oh dear God, please stop. You know, but I think he's done a good job at avoiding that in WWE. Obviously, and he's been there for over 2 years now. So good for him. You know, the AEW run though, you do remember a lot, and you're like, oh my God, this guy. You know, he got to a point where you didn't want to see him on TV. You know, like for a lot of people, I don't know if I ever fully got there. I always thought like Cody could have been something different, but he didn't embrace being a heel and whatnot. Sure. So that didn't help. But you know, he was cutting really good promos even in his build-ups for like New Japan. You know, a lot of that Kenny stuff, like it was him kind of controlling it because Kenny's not a big promo guy, so it was Cody telling the stories and pushing the narrative of, oh well, I'm actually the leader and things like that. So you do got to look at it that way, but there are negatives to what can be a great promo. Like his promo that I'll never forget is the undesirable to undeniable promo in the lead up to the Jericho feud. Some of his best work ever, and we keep talking about that Jericho feud, but it was so good. Yeah. And a lot of it was because of him. Actually, I'd argue all of it was. I don't remember a single thing Jericho did other than win.
That's a good point. I don't remember what Jericho did of that feud.
But we talk about it like it's this amazing thing because, well, Cody did it. Yeah. Cody did it. But, you know, it's still the low point.
And I do want to compliment his promo ability as well. Very recently, right? You know, we're recording this a week after WrestleMania, so there's a little bit of recency bias, but obviously this goes back a couple months. We've talked about this. We talked about this a lot on Ring Post Radio. Check it out every Sunday. If you're listening to this, I have to assume you're listening to Ring Post Radio. But there is something about this last WrestleMania cycle where we talked about The Rock coming in and dogging Seth Rollins, even dogging the big dog Roman Reigns. And who was able, for the most part, but way better than everybody else, who was able to keep up with him on the microphone and not get eaten alive?
Yeah, that's Cody.
Cody.
And
I would say not a all-time promo worker like The Rock.
No,
but able to hold.
He didn't get swallowed, and for much of it, he stayed on even ground, which is, you know, it may not have delivered like this unbelievable forever remember promo during that time, but it's the fact that he, you know, everyone's talking about week after week after week. Oh my God, The Rock and this promo and The Rock and this and that, and Cody remained in the conversation. You know, how many baby faces in the past 20 years could have stood in there and went one-on-one with the great one?
Sure.
You know, like, especially with The Rock and his new version of himself, he was like so much better than the you want to talk about hokey bullshit. The Rock leaned on hokey bullshit for a lot of these recent returns. But he changed it up, and Cody was willing to go out there each and every week and chirp back. And I think that does mean a lot because, when you go top 5 promos of all time, The Rock is there comfortably. Like Dave Meltzer calls him the most charismatic wrestler ever.
Yeah.
That's tough.
It's tough.
But this is a Ballot episode. I'm going to reference Meltzer a lot here because it's kind of his thing.
All fair game. All fair game.
But it's an accomplishment in its own way, especially thinking back to that AEW time where he just fell off so much.
I should also say I have references to the Observer Awards as well. I'm looking through it right now. To see if he ever sort of gotten any sort of... He got second place most charismatic, second place best on interviews, second place U.S. Canada MVP in 2019, second place feud of the year versus Jericho in 2019.
I do want to give him credit for interviews as well. I think like when he does sit down interviews, these aren't promos, but like when he does sit down interviews with like whether it be media or for the show, he's very good at those. When it's like calm and he's trying to sell, he's really good at selling things.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
He's kind of like Paul Heyman in that. Paul Heyman's the promoter type promo.
He got honorable mention best on interviews in 2017 and 2018. Honorable mention most charismatic in 2018. 2020 fourth place best on interviews, seventh place most charismatic. 2021 that was a real bad year, I'll tell you that much. Worst feud.
2021 wasn't he hurt?
2021 no, this was 2021 was third place worst.
Oh, that was the bad year.
2021, let's be honest. Let's talk about it, I guess. Terrible year for Cody Rhodes. And
terrible.
We'll talk about this more, I guess, when it comes to longevity.
Which led to him becoming WWE's top star.
Yes. We'll talk about it more when it comes to longevity. Yeah. But 2021 is such a bad year for Cody Rhodes that it hurts a lot. 2022, honorable mention, most charismatic. 2023, first place U.S. Canada MVP. Fifth place, best on interviews. Fifth place, most charismatic. So he is certainly up there in terms of promo ability and wrestling ability. Where I want to know what your grade is for him on promos. But before we hear that, I was just sitting here thinking, we're talking a lot about stories and angles and all these things to build up the matches. The matches, for the most part, can be great, but for the most part are pretty good to really good. Promos are like same thing of can be great. He might not be, it doesn't feel like he might be he's not the best worker of all time, and it doesn't feel like he's the best talker of all time. But is he certainly up there, or is he in consideration of one of the best angle guys of all time? Yeah. He has so many different things that are like memorable stories that I can distinctly recall from the past 6 years.
And that in many ways, I think, lifts both the promos and the matches, because you think of those and it's like, oh, well, some of this was really bad. However, he raised these to be so great that you didn't expect it. And I think that is definitely absolutely correct in that he does know how to build those angles and map those things out. But, there's always, that's not one of the questions here. So I can't grade that.
Sure.
For promos is tough. Promos is really tough because you think of the great ones, you think of what he's done the past couple of years, you think of the Rock stuff, but then you think of 2021, which is just deplorable. 2021 is what sinks his rating from like top tier to, well, you can't go that high.
He hasn't gotten back into that lack of bag yet. So there's
he hasn't come close.
There's something to maybe he's learned a little bit,
I think he did. I think he learned a lot. And again, he's probably still grateful for that year, even if we say how bad it was, because look where he is now.
Yeah.
He's not where he is now without that year, I think. Which again is a conversation for his career overall. I think I'm like B minus C plus. I'm trying to lean here because like
Is he a better promo than wrestler, or is he a better wrestler than promo?
Most people on the surface, I think, would think he's a better promo than wrestler. But like, I like the way he tells stories in his matches better. And maybe this is also me as the more in-ring guy to tell stories than the promo guy to tell stories, because I'm a big fan of obviously like Japanese wrestling, and that's kind of how they do it.
Sure.
And so that's kind of how I look at Cody. So I think he's a better in-ring guy, which is kind of crazy to say for Cody, because I don't think anyone would agree with me on that. But I'm gonna go B minus.
Okay.
And 2021 hangs in my head, and I almost feel like I'm being a little too strict on that, but we know where Cody can go with his promos. It's like, but I know what the other grading systems are here, and this is where it's going to really benefit him.
Let's talk next up his drawing power.
Pretty good.
pretty good. So I think we'll work backwards, right?
Yeah.
WWE.
Now.
Right now.
Working backwards.
Right now, from
the
present.
biggest draw in wrestling.
Yes. Well, according to Dave Meltzer, last year was second biggest to Roman, but sure. But yes, but go ahead.
He was the main event of 2 WrestleManias, back-to-back nights this year, obviously, which is, a big credit to his drawing power. He made house shows worth it for WWE.
Which was a money loss for them.
Yes.
For a very long time.
There was consideration of limiting them even more, right? You and me had that conversation on Ring Post Radio months ago. Like they were like, we'll kind of scale back, because remember, you and me were talking about like money and how that may affect WWE wrestlers, and then it's like, but they're making money from them now, and it's because of Cody. And you were looking at all these sellout dates and where WWE's interest has gone. I know a lot of it has to do with the product just being better, but who has been at the forefront of that product getting better? It's been Cody Rhodes.
Yeah.
He is the top draw of the past 2 years.
Yeah. I pulled up a graph here for us to look at. Sorry, it's an audio medium, but this is a graph provided by Trish Spears online with data provided from WrestleNomics. This is Raw, the TV show Raw, their first quarter. This is ratings, and how much do you want to call on ratings in terms of the drawing power?
Sure.
Especially nowadays when that's the bulk of the money that all these companies are making. I don't think Wrestling Observer voters quite understand or know where and how much weight to put in TV draws for these people. Well, we have a graph here with data from WrestleNomics provided from Trish Spears of Q1 of Raw, the P2 Plus, and then the key demo of 18 to 49. And you can see, I'll just go through the key demo. Raw 2019 Q1, these are all Q1, a 0.91, 2020 0.71, 2021 0.56, 2022 0.47, 2023, the year Cody joins the company, 0.53, 2024 0.56. The company turns itself around.
Yeah. 2023 and 2024 are his full years. He joined in 2022, but obviously was there for like 3 months.
Yeah, I have him from...
And he wasn't in Q1.
Correct. He was not in Q1. He comes in basically obviously in April and leaves in like June for Hell in a Cell. And then he returns in basically January of 2023. So Q1 there in 2023.
Yeah. We're also coming off, again, recency bias, but we're coming off a episode of Raw that reached 3 million viewers at one point for a Cody Rhodes segment with The Rock.
Yes.
So obviously The Rock has a lot to do with it.
To be fair, The Rock is there.
But it's Cody and The Rock. You know? So it was a 45-minute segment.
Yeah. Obviously, this Q1 as well. I mean, we're talking Q1 of fiscal year, January, February, March. This is all the build up to WrestleMania. So you can easily see 2023, 2024. And even then, like, you know, there's the aspect of who has the book in 2023. Is that part of what's part of this new boom period? Or is it as well Cody Rhodes popping up and popping some TV demos?
Notably on Raw, Cody did a lot of the build to WrestleMania by himself for his matches as well. You know, Roman wasn't around. The Rock was only on Raw once or twice this year. Roman was on it once. One time. It was all Cody. So I think that's a great graphic, obviously, of like the change. Obviously, like cable and stuff has dramatically changed over the past couple of years. But seeing that climb despite that says so much for Cody.
There's obviously also the whole I think the interesting thing also about Cody's drawing power in WWE is very strong, but at the same time, like we've sort of talked about in Ring Post Radio as well, is, and I think another same reason I'm talking about why the TV demos people don't really know how to deal with. People don't really know how you assess WWE tickets. Cody Rhodes, main eventer of 3 WrestleManias, right? Last year on night 2, and this year night 1 and night 2, right?
Right.
But how do you assess how much he is part of the draw there? Maybe you can make the argument for WrestleMania this year as part of that draw, but WrestleMania sells out these tickets months in advance. How much is he part of the picture for WrestleMania last year versus WrestleMania this year? Maybe there's an argument that people are thinking that it would be Cody versus Roman again. Obviously, they don't know The Rock, but you know,
it's hard to use WrestleMania only. It's why for a lot of like Cody's power in this, you look at the house shows, you look at the TV shows rather than WrestleMania. But he did main event both the WrestleManias, and in that build, he got people in the building for every show along the way. But you're absolutely right. Like WrestleMania is WrestleMania. It goes off its name. You could put almost anyone in the main event, and it would be like that's something I always wonder, right? Like last year, obviously the tag team match main evented night 1, and then Cody was on night 2. You know, they packed the doors for night 1. It's not like it's not like they were missing. They were 15,000 less than night 2. So I think you make a great point there. It's why I look more, especially in his WWE run, to what he's done for house shows and whatnot. It's like when Cody posts that schedule that he does. Here's my schedule this month. That actually matters. Because people want to know where this guy is.
Yeah, I got the here. I'll put my presentation on the screen here. Share the screen and Cody Rhodes attendance, and we'll see this as it pops up. Oh God, that's impossible to see.
I see it.
This is good enough. So this is. Let's zoom in a little bit more. There we go. So this is an attendance report of just WWE. I filtered out everything, so we just have the house shows. Right, and so this is the chart that is shown from 2022 to 2024. Obviously, a little. It's hard. Maybe let me get rid of this line here. Maybe this trend line here. But obviously, 2022. And also these are. I should clear. These are house shows that Cody Rhodes main evented or semi-main evented specifically. So the draw, right? 2022, very low, sub 5,000. Then when he returns in 2023, pretty much every single house show is above 5,000 with one can I click on this line? I had it pop up. March 26th, nearly 10,000. This was 9,653 people.
The house show before WrestleMania.
Yes, which would have been in Denver, Colorado, in a main event of Cody Rhodes, Strowman, and Ricochet versus Jimmy and Jey Uso and Solo Sikoa. That's your main event of a near 10,000 house show right before WrestleMania. Then he has a little bit house show stuff in September of 2023, around 7,000. And then 2024, he's popping big numbers. He has a number here of 2024, 15,000. And this is the 12/26 show in 2023.
That's Madison Square Garden.
That's Madison Square Garden, baby. Where he is. Where is this 12/26 here? Oh, I passed it.
Right there. Him and Nakamura in a bull rope match.
In the semi-main event of Madison Square Garden. He also pops, I know later, another almost, the next day or 2 days later, he pops 9,000 in Quebec, Canada. 2 days after that, in Inglewood, California, in a main event against Nakamura in a street fight, 13,000.
I think it's very notable to say he's fighting washed up Shinsuke Nakamura.
Yeah. And then in Fresno in February of the next year, 9,900 against Nakamura in a street fight in the main event. I believe
It'll be interesting to see how he does as world champion. Obviously,
I believe the Fresno one also was a CM Punk return match, so I'm sure that plays a part. But yes, he's main eventing or semi-main eventing a lot of big time shows, especially Madison Square Garden. That's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
AEW. Any thoughts on how is drawing in as AEW? A tougher one because, again, I think it's like, how do you assess AEW as a drawing entity? Because a lot of their money comes from television. We also know that how Tony Khan books AEW a lot of the time is he'll put like the main event match, the most interesting match per se, as the opener, right? Because he's booking for TV. He's not booking for attendance per se,
right?
Which I guess when we dog it on AEW's attendance lately, maybe there's a point there. Maybe there's a point to be put in there. And also not only that, Cody Rhodes, because not a world title contender, because he's the TNT champion, not really in any main events. I have him in his time of AEW. I have him in 10 main events or semi-main events in the history of the company, of his time in the company.
Notably, he also, a lot of the time, he had big matches on TV.
Mm-hmm.
It was COVID.
Yes. That's also a good point. This is all during COVID.
Run.
All during COVID.
Yeah, so it's really tough to judge his drawing power in AEW. The best thing I can give you is that, he was one of the big stars of getting this show on TV to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously that's not, it's really weird to look at it that way, but like with how AEW works as a drawing company, that's the best thing I can give him, right? Like it would be like, former WWE stars, Chris Jericho and Cody Rhodes. That did a lot of the talking for the non-diehard fans, especially in the early days. And who was leaned on in the first big world title program for TV in AEW?
Yep.
Cody Rhodes.
Yes.
It was him and Jericho in that first initial build.
That was the semi-main event at Full Gear in Baltimore, Maryland. Obviously, the main event, Moxley versus Omega. 8,200 in attendance for that one.
That was the match. Like, I understood it didn't main event, but that was the match that everyone was looking forward to going into it.
Mm-hmm.
He's very unique, though, in that case.
Yeah. He also has 6,400 in Orlando, Florida in October 2021 against Malachi Black. He has 5,500. I went to this show. I wasn't paying attention. Here, Cody versus Wardlow in the steel cage in Atlanta, right before the pandemic. And then main event of television, Rhodes versus Guevara, Greensboro, December 25th, 2021 for the TNT title, 5,600 attendance. So yeah, extremely tough. There's the pandemic, obviously. He's a mid-card guy for the most time. And they don't really book for attendance. Like, a lot of the times the bigger matches are openers. So very tough to look at for AEW. Now, Ring of Honor is also very interesting because I did a bunch of research on Ring of Honor because I really wanted to know. Ring of Honor, this is from the Wrestling Observer. I forgot to write down which article this is from. But Ring of Honor, this is from the Wrestling Observer from Dave Meltzer. 2017. Ring of Honor has the biggest year by far in its history. Reader Lavi Margolin compiled the business figure for the company for 2017, which is by far the most successful year in its history. During the year, the company ran 42 live events and drew 46,000 plus fans for an average of 1,000 per event. The average attendance per show was up a whopping 29%, even though, because they ran fewer overall shows, total attendance was only up about 15. Still, with the exception of All Japan, no other major company in the world showed this level of an increase. There are still warning signs as a New Japan relationship is a major key, as are the Young Bucks, who are under contract until 2018. We know what happens there. Also there might be some hurts of her losing War Machine and Will Ospreay. But it's an incredibly strong promotion in 2017. One of the best increases any company in 2017. Cody Rhodes main evented or semi-main evented 42 Ring of Honor shows in his run out of 144. That's about 30% of the shows in Ring of Honor during his run. He main evented. In 2017, he is the world champion. And then in
6 months, right?
Yes. Yep. And then so majority of 2017, he's the world champion. He comes into the company in 2017. He comes in at the very tail end of 2016. And his first semi-main event match is in February of 2017. But then he's in the company. He is the heavyweight champion for most of the year in 2017. And then 2018 pretty much is the build to Supercard of Honor. And then the build to All In.
Right. So you did a lot of the talking for me there.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a draw. Obviously, him and the Elite. I want to give credit. Him and the Bucks, really. Kenny was never really there.
Yeah, I don't really give Kenny any sort of points
so
on this one.
It was really him and the Bucks. And
I guess, to be fair, you give Kenny a little bit for the Supercard of Honor match where they drew an all-time rating.
Oh, absolutely. But he was such a big reason why. And I also want to give him as well as the Elite some credit for the show that they were never on of G1 Supercard, because they did sell a lot of those tickets with the expectation they'd be there.
A great point. A weird feather in the cap for Cody Rhodes here.
Yeah, especially after All In, like the excitement was through the roof, and things happened. But I do want to give him and the Bucks credit for that. And All In speaks for itself. All In, it's Cody and the Bucks, period. Like, that was their show. The posters to that show was Cody in the middle, Bucks on the side of him. And, it didn't matter what the card was. The excitement level was brought from these three and what they had created through Ring of Honor. And, one guy tweeting something and, the story, and Cody's just saying, all right, buddy. All right, Dave, bet. But that's the biggest independent show ever.
Yeah. 11,000 in the Sears Center Arena in Hoffman Estates, Illinois. Obviously, he was not the main event of that show, but like we already talked about, one of the more memorable matches from that show. Mm-hmm. And obviously a big reason for why that show exists as the promoter of said show. Yeah, no, I bring up all the Ring of Honor stuff is because what's interesting to me about this is that Dave, at the time, gives the credits to the New Japan relationship and the Young Bucks. And I don't think you can count out Cody fully.
Not at all.
Because the Young Bucks obviously were in 2016. And to be fair, 2017 is really also where being the Elite gets super popular. But Cody comes into the company, and then the company has the best business year of all time. Yeah, and he's in 30% of the main events and semi-main events.
Him.
Yeah.
I think it's ridiculous to ignore him. I'll tell you now, I went to a Ring of Honor show once upon a time, and the reason I went was Cody and the Young Bucks. It's like that was the draw. I have personal experience of why I went to that show. It was because of Cody and the Young Bucks, especially Cody. Truthfully, like I was a big fan of Cody, especially when he left WWE and took the chance, and he built himself up. He didn't start in Ring of Honor when he left WWE. He built himself up to be a big star by the time he got to Ring of Honor and win that world title, reign for 6 months, and like you said, be the main event for a lot of that.
I'm also pulling up here is Cody Rhodes attendance for you. I'll put a link for this in the show notes.
Cody versus Dijak, that pops me big.
Yeah, that is the semi-main event in February 2017. Attendance at 500. Also, he Ring of Honor in 2017 had numerous sellouts, which was big for Ring of Honor. I'm clicking them real quickly, as quick as I can. Over the course of 2017 to when Cody leaves at the end of 2018, he was main or semi-main of 14 sellouts for Ring of Honor. And as you can see in this chart here, Scotty, his time in Ring of Honor by being in the main or semi-main events, the numbers go up, folks.
Pretty good.
The numbers go up.
He is a draw. He is a pro wrestling draw at every level of professional wrestling, from the independents to the second major promotion to the biggest promotion.
Yeah.
He is a draw. All you have to look at, to me, is his past, not decade, but what, 6 years, 7 years?
Yeah.
That, and he has climbed, and with him, the attendance number has climbed as he's changed companies, obviously.
Sure.
I feel like you can't take anything away, and I don't want to look at his early career. He wasn't put in the position to be a draw.
No.
He had to make himself one by leaving WWE. And obviously there's a bunch of independent promotions that we're not talking about here that he was the big draw on for a lot of those shows, right? Evolve, for example.
TNA. Was he a draw on TNA? I don't know.
He was an Impact for like one match. So
for Mike Bennett.
Yeah, we're not going to count that. He did a lot of like Northeast wrestling, and he went here, there, and everywhere. But that's the credit I want to give him, is that if he was drawing for Ring of Honor, if he was drawing for this company that's obviously at the time, kind of the number 2 in America. In
2017 for sure.
For sure. He's also doing it for all these independent promotions, which obviously doesn't have the same meaning as a WWE, AEW, Ring of Honor. But it just goes to show his work ethic made him a star.
Yeah.
It made him a must-see star for a lot of fans in every level that he was in.
Is he a Hall of Fame draw? Maybe, right? I mean, maybe.
We include his past 2 years of WWE, and like, it's weird because again, it's WWE. WWE is a draw, but WWE became hot, became popular again.
Yeah,
with Cody as the face of it, essentially. Yes, he just became world champion, but you can't say he hasn't been the face of it if you've been paying attention at all for the past, 2 years. With Roman gone, he's the guy. He may not have a title that said he was the guy, but he was the guy.
Just for comparison's sake, Cody versus Roman, which when the tickets were sold, obviously, who knew this was going to be the match, was 67,000 people. 67,553 was the number. And then in the main event against Roman, WrestleMania Sunday, the attendance here on Cage Match, which I believe was the work attendance, I'm not entirely positive, 70,000. So in a year later, in a show that probably people more suspected would be Cody versus Roman than anything else, sold an extra seemingly 3,000 tickets. Not a huge significant bump, but that's a bump.
No, but it's a bump. I mean, I can make the great joke that it's the most watched WrestleMania of all time.
I bet it is. I bet it. Sure, Paul. Sure, Paul. Whatever you say.
Yeah. Peacock.
What grade?
He actually got them the Peacock deal, is what I'm saying here.
Ooh, interesting.
It was all Cody. No, I'm just kidding. But
hot take. What grade did he give to his drawing?
A.
Perfect. Great.
I'll never give an A+ for anything, probably. So just because,
All right. Going a little long here, but there's a lot to talk about with Cody, so I appreciate it, Scotty. Historical significance. Another big topic when it comes to Cody Rhodes. Historical significance. Most obvious, AEW.
This feels easy, right? Like, he's as significant as anyone in terms of, like, the past decade.
Sure.
He helped create the Enemy. He also had the biggest indie show of all time.
Yep.
He is the biggest draw in WWE when the wrestling's hot again.
Yeah.
People aren't seeing me because this isn't a video, but I am making actions. This is Ring Post Radio coming out of me right now. Usually people could see me, but like, hello, the AEW thing alone.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't have to talk about anything else. He just has more.
And I think kind of what I alluded to at the very beginning of this episode is that what's the one tough thing, right? About, like I already said about drawing power, right? With Ring of Honor, he's really good in Ring of Honor, AEW as well. Historical significance. How much do these voters respect Ring of Honor and AEW? That will be the tough part, because to you and I think I feel like what is the most logical thing, the historical significance alone of helping create and being a major part of that creation of Ring of Honor is a huge thing. But the reason I'm always worried about this is that the Young Bucks did not go in. And I think that there are a lot of things that they are better at than Cody in some ways.
He's got the WWE part.
But now he has a WWE part, which adds to it. And,
Where he has 3 main events.
Mm-hmm. And to be fair, however you see...
And old school wrestlers love him.
That's true. However you see kayfabe titles and title reigns, historical significance, he's the guy that ends Roman Reigns' title run.
He also has the NWA World's title, if you want to talk about old people being happy. He has the WWE title. He's got the NWA. They don't care about Ring of Honor. I understand that.
Yeah.
Like, they're not going to give him and he established the TNT title, if we want to talk about historical significance.
Sure.
He was a great champion the first time he held it. But I mean, that doesn't matter compared to the AEW and creating the difference maker in why WWE got hot again, which he was a major part of. He pretty much set himself up to be great. I mean, I don't think when he made AEW, the plan was, I'm going to go be the biggest star in WWE in 5 years. But damn it, it worked.
Yeah. I think that's fair.
Hey,
again, I think that's fair. I think that's more than fair. That's
the strongest thing. Like, if I gave it A+, I wouldn't even I'm just saying A because
you could give A+ if you like.
A+.
There it is, baby. It is.
3. Like, I'm trying to think on the head of the old people voters that didn't like the Young Bucks. Well, Cody had everything you didn't like about the Young Bucks.
That's a good point. Maybe that's
the Young Bucks stuff.
Maybe you're right. There is the first Ballot Hall of Fame potentially in Cody's future. We'll find out, I guess.
It's gonna be close. I think it's gonna be very close.
Longevity. So we've kind of alluded to this already. Cody Rhodes, sort of the start of his stuff is 2017, 2018. Goes into 2024, except there's that 1 year of 2021 that sticks out like a goddamn sore thumb.
Yeah. I mean, longevity as a main eventer, 2021 removed.
Yeah.
It's a lot of years now. Back to what? I want to say 2017.
Yeah.
Comfortably. He main evented for Ring of Honor. He main evented for New Japan. He main evented for AEW. He main evented for WWE many times. Those are the 4 biggest promotions of the past decade. And he main evented for every single one of them.
He has a longevity there. It's just there's 1 year that stinks.
1 year that is stinky poo-poo. But I can look past that.
Mm-hmm.
I can, like the reason I can look past it is because of what he's done since.
Yeah,
he
that
turned
has
an awful year into the best couple years of his career.
Is superseded a bad
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, I mean, I'll keep it in mind. I mean, and there's also the longevity of just as a wrestler. He's been wrestling and pretty much never injured except for one time since 2007.
That's a great point. His, going back to his wrestling ability, extremely safe style. He has never been.
He's the good version of the Miz.
Hey, that's a good compliment in of itself. Yeah, he never really gets truly injured. You said like 2007 or something. Obviously, 2022 or whatever it was.
2022. He missed the second half of the year.
Yep.
He missed 6 months
With the pec. Wrestling since 2006. So this means that he's been wrestling for 17 years.
And he's been on TV since 2007.
Yes. He's been around for a very long time. A lot of that is, nothing, openers, tags, mid-card guys, obviously.
The first time he missed any time in wrestling was when he left WWE. He wrestled every single month from June 2006 to the end of May 2016. A decade of wrestling every single month. Like, I understand this isn't going to go into a lot of voters, like a lot of people's heads when they're voting.
Sure.
But like, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's a decade of just going out there and doing your job, eating a lot of shit sandwiches along the way.
Yeah.
And then pretty much once he misses time, from there, he becomes a main event star.
And he slowly builds himself up for Ring of Honor into AEW, back into WWE.
Mm-hmm.
What do you get?
A guy, dude.
What a guy. What do you rate his longevity?
I'll give him a 2021, just punching me in the head. He didn't miss a single month that year.
I'll tell you that much.
A lot of people wish he did, but he didn't. I bet he did too. I think I'm gonna go B+.
Okay. All right.
I think like there's still a lot of his career he just wasn't a main eventer. While very impressive and stuff, but longevity at the top. I think he would benefit from a full year as world champion, for example.
Mm-hmm.
He's never had he has 6 months. That's his longest reign as a world champion.
Yeah.
So that could hurt him, but
he doesn't have a big longevity on top. He's always like a main eventer or something, but his longevity on top is not really anything. And I think that's obviously the voters are going to happen in October, November of this year.
Yeah.
See how long this current title reign in WWE is.
If he's still world champion, if WWE's still hot by then, it's going to be hard to argue.
It's going to be very hard to argue. So B+ longevity. Influence. How influential to Cody? There's historical significance that I see as sort of like his mark on the wrestling as a sport, right? Mm-hmm. The creation of AEW, for example. But the wrestlers themselves, what is his sort of influence on wrestling work, promo work, to the wrestlers themselves? Very, I think, to be fair, extremely hard to gauge with any modern wrestler. But how much influence do you think he has over the wrestlers?
I think he's very influential. There's a lot of people that love Cody Rhodes in professional wrestling, right? And there's a lot of people that saw what he did, and they may want to try to mirror that in their career. Maybe you're not working, maybe it's not working somewhere, maybe you're in WWE and you're stuck, right? And you have this great contract, and you have to remember, he's a nepo baby, right? Like, and he still took, like, but you have to remember, Rhodes in WWE, like, they were never going to get rid of him.
Sure.
Never going to happen. And you look at that, and you look at him willing to take the chance when other wrestlers, like a DiBiase, for example, just disappeared from existence, right? Like, like he wanted to be better. He wanted to be great. And I think a lot of people a lot of wrestlers around him are going to look at that. He also trained a lot, the Nightmare Factory is a thing. And it's really weird for a modern guy, but like he might have the best case as a modern guy.
All right.
He's also, or one of the better cases, I should say.
I'm looking over the list of the modern guys. Kevin Owens, Zack Sabre Jr., Usos.
I feel pretty good about that so far.
Bray Wyatt, Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn, I think, is up there.
Sami Zayn's an influential guy.
I think Sami Zayn, if anybody, is probably more than Cody.
Yeah,
a lot of the Generico stuff.
Like, obviously, you're not going to inspire people to create companies or things like that.
Sure.
Can't do that, but
I think he's inspired like guys like MJF, in terms of their what they do in the ring and what they do in the mic.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, for Cody, it's so recent, his peak.
Sure.
So he does suffer there. But I do like to look at the leaving and things like that and taking chances on yourself. And even just like, all right, I'm going to go bet on myself. Like he's been comfortable twice now.
Sure.
Right? He was comfortable in WWE, could have just kept going as Stardust. Right, he could have
kept going and died as
maybe became Cody Rhodes again, but like you never know.
Sure,
he took a shot there, and then he left AEW, the company he helped create, and bet on himself
twice,
and is now the biggest star in WWE, which is ultimately the biggest star in professional wrestling.
If I had to detract one thing from the influence is exactly what you're talking about. You would think, looking at Cody Rhodes and how he was treated himself, jumping ship all these sort of places, and going back to that sort of old school idea of jumping around the territory, that more people would follow suit because it worked out so well for Cody.
I know
that it's shocking that not more people are doing it, or people do it, and then they're like, brother, that ain't working for me, that sort of style. You would think that he would inspire more wrestlers to jump the territory a bunch, but it really hasn't kicked in.
Probably inspired, and you're going to laugh at me.
All right.
But, I'm sure he inspired, a Matt Cardona, for example.
Oh, I fully agree. I mean, right? to be fair, Matt Cardona was fired. And Cody
He was fired.
Yeah. Was Cody fired? I'm trying to remember.
No, Cody asked for his release.
Okay.
But the post leaving the big federation, you look at a lot of the way Cardona made waves. And while, I'm not going to sit here and say I love everything that Matt Cardona has done.
Or has at all hit the peaks of Cody Rhodes leaving WWE.
He still made people pay attention.
Yeah.
Right.
And he cites Cody as a reason for that.
For sure.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I was trying to think of an example. I think a Ricky Starks could be a guy that follows that eventually, but that's just a what if.
Yeah.
But Jade Cargill, comfortable in it. I look at Jade and I'm like, okay, she left because of Cody. Come on. Obviously she's a star, but she was, Cody was someone who I think took pretty good care of her, and
another person she cites as someone that helped her a lot.
Again, very, very weird thing to rank for someone like a Cody, and it's almost like more people should follow his lead.
It's shocking that there isn't. It's shocking to me that there isn't.
But not everyone has, I think, Cody's mindset probably either, which
that's also fair.
Is a lot of what we've talked about on the show today is his mindset and his goals and so on. So
great.
I would like to think future wrestlers likely do follow his footsteps. And again, a guy a lot of wrestlers love.
That's fair.
Openly. When he won the world title, you saw wrestlers around the world congratulating this guy, but that's not to say, he's influencing them to do the same. They should. They, again, should. I'm not going to say you're going to become the biggest star in WWE.
Sure.
You can do a lot more if you bet on yourself.
Mm-hmm. And he's a big influence in the meme department, I think, as well.
That too. Funny guy on accident.
Great on BT. He sailed 1,000 ships with that notepad and hands picture.
He did. That influenced a lot of people.
Hall of Fame level right
that
there.
I think we are okay with.
Yeah. Where do you rank? What grade would you give his influence?
I have no freaking clue, Ryan.
That's fair. That's fair.
I really don't know. Because like he doesn't deserve a bad grade.
Sure.
Like,
the weakest grade you've given is his promo ability at B- so far.
Which is very funny because he's a very good promo. I feel like I should change that to a B. It feels like that and the wrestling should be on the same page.
Okay, we can change that to a B.
Please do.
And then is this going to be influence a B-? That he has influence, but not.
Can I give him an incomplete?
Sorry, I'm gonna have to take a grade here.
Can I get a ask me later?
No, you cannot.
Okay. I'll go with B- for now, just because like he deserves a good enough grade, but like
it certainly is his weakest. It's certainly.
Oh, for sure. And I think for any modern wrestler, they probably deserve one. And like I know people on the ballot here that you're talking about are like a Kento Miyahara, for example.
Yeah.
His influence is very different from like what Cody can influence.
Exactly.
So like
exactly. And I also bring up the influence conversation as well, because we do have more historical people. Haven't talked about them yet on the show, but
those will be very good for that ranking.
Yeah, I like to think. Let me send you in the chat now. This is the list, and it's going to be not formatted great because it never is whenever I send this to people. Well, actually, you know what? We have a Slack. Let me send it to you in Slack. That'll be
we do have a Slack.
That'll be an easier way to probably look at this damn thing. So this is the full list, as far as I can tell, of people that will be in the Modern Performers and U.S. Canada / candidates section of the ballot. This is 21 people, 7 votes. The list is, and I also gave the percentages of last year's if you will like, but the people are 21 people. You get 7 votes, by the way. And this question for you, Scotty, is, as I prep the debate here, who are you voting in out of the 7? The people we have here: Mark and Jay Briscoe, the Young Bucks, Edge, Bill Goldberg, Matt and Jeff Hardy, Becky Lynch, Jon Moxley, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, Paul Orndorff, Randy Orton, CM Punk, Roman Reigns, Trish Stratus, Rick and Scott Steiner, and then new this year, Asuka / Kana, Cody Rhodes, Kevin Owens, the Usos, after that WrestleMania match, I don't know, Bray Wyatt, Sami Zayn, and Samoa Joe. While you're still thinking about the 7 votes.
I got 7.
Okay, great. Real quickly, previous guest, Suit Williams. I'm sure he'll be fine with me saying this. He and I discussed the Usos, and at the end of it, he really actually got convinced that, like, you know what, the Usos might actually be Hall of Famers. There's a good shot, and he considered them for his ballot. He doesn't have one, but if he had a ballot, he would consider them greatly. And then he messaged me privately after the WrestleMania match and said, "I would like to formally retract my my Usos ballot." So there's a little update.
They weren't one of my 7.
No, yeah. So there's a little update for everybody: is that he has dropped the Usos based on the WrestleMania performance alone. So who are your 7 here?
Would be the Briscoes,
Mark and Jay Briscoe,
the Young Bucks. And by the way, if I did have a ballot, I would make all 7 votes.
Sure.
If you have the votes, use them.
Sure.
The Briscoes, the Young Bucks, Becky Lynch.
Okay.
Jon Moxley.
Yeah.
CM Punk.
After this past week, after yesterday, it's hard to...
He's got some good accolades. CM Punk.
Okay.
Cry me a river. Roman Reigns.
Uh-huh.
And Cody Rhodes.
Okay. So, a lot of top guys here. Briscoes, Young Bucks, Becky Lynch, Moxley, Punk, Reigns, and Rhodes. Those are all...
I think they all have real legitimacy in history in terms of importance. I think I think Becky Lynch being only at 22.9% is laughable.
Sure.
Just, she's the first woman ever to be the top star in the WWE.
Yeah.
And potentially the only. Like, in all actuality, like, that might be a possibility.
Yeah. I think that's
I'm filling out my ballot now. Get over it, people. Talking this through. The Briscoes, I feel like their work speaks for itself. And after Tomohiro Ishii got in, I think the Briscoes should get in easily. They're also one of the most influential tag teams of the 21st century.
It's just a tough part about the Ring of Honor thing.
Yes. The Young Bucks, I don't need to bring it up. I just talked about Cody for 2 hours or an hour and a half or whatever. Yep. I think that speaks again for itself. Like I said, Becky Lynch is hurt. Jon Moxley, again, a guy that probably people should be following and getting out of a shitty situation and betting on themselves, despite being a WWE champion, despite being connected to the Shield of all things that I just watched, 2/3 be in the WrestleMania main event and be a big feature of that. He bet on himself.
I don't know if Seth Rollins would be the consideration of a big feature of the WrestleMania main event.
No, but I meant the Shield music.
Sure.
Could have been him. Could have been him. And he's gone on to be AEW World Champion, IWGP World Champion. The list goes on and on and on. CM Punk. Again, I don't feel like I need to explain that one. Influential, very influential.
He's a big influence on Danhausen. I'll say.
He also just made a huge heel, 24 hours after we're recording this. So you're welcome, Jack Perry. But in all seriousness, I know people will look at his AEW stuff and look down upon that, but he's a legitimate draw in wrestling. We don't have a lot of those anymore, people.
Yeah.
Whether he's on TV or it's proved since he's come back to WWE as well. Mm-hmm. And he got he bumped AEW without being part of the company. Shout out to the footage.
Only seeing his back.
if you didn't hear me and Ryan talk about the footage, check out the April 14th episode of Ring Post Radio. Hasn't happened yet. Roman Reigns. 9 WrestleMania main events. 1,300 days as WWE Undisputed Universal Heavyweight Champion of the world. Roman Reigns feels like a layup this year. It's just,
after 11 matches,
he's the guy. He's the guy, man. He's just been the guy.
He is so far, I think, the only WWE top guy that has not gotten into the Hall of Fame.
And he will be. It's just a matter of when. He's at 52%, so he's going to get it.
Yeah.
And Cody Rhodes, which I just spent past hour and a half talking about. So, bada bing.
Bada bing, bada boom. I took all your grades. I put them in a little grade calculator. I have the grade weighted out as... I fixed it a little bit. I wasn't too happy with it, but I think this is a little bit better. Wrestling ability is 20% weighted. Promo, 10%. Drawing power, 25%. Historical significance, 20%. Longevity, 15%. And influence, 10%. And that all comes out to be a total grade for Cody Rhodes, an A-. 3.53 as a grade average, 3.53. To put in perspective, talking of Gerard DiTrolio with Kento Miyahara, he gave a B+, 3.12. So Cody Rhodes, a little bit higher.
Fair.
A-. Better. You've heard it here, folks.
You're asking which wrestler I'd rather watch wrestle between those two. It's very different.
Yes, but, to be fair, you gave Cody a B in wrestling ability. Gerard gave Kento an A+. He said one of the best workers of all time. So
see, I'm not saying that about Cody, but I'm saying a lot of other things. And I think I like this episode, Ryan. Thank you for having me. I know eventually the Ring Post Radio crew will eventually hear this as well, because summer is when we disappear from time to time.
I don't know what you're talking about. This is exclusive on Patreon. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I'm just kidding. This isn't. Well, by the time the Patreon people heard this.
Yeah, the Patreon people are getting this. Well, we don't know. We don't know if there's
but my point is, by the time the Patreon people heard this part, they're like, shit. So thank you.
Great. I thank you. I think I don't know.
You're welcome. You're welcome. But you should listen to all the episodes because I know Ryan put his. Ryan had charts, people. If that doesn't describe hard work, I don't know what does.
Yeah. I greatly appreciate that, Scotty. I greatly appreciate it. I can't wait to talk 2+ more hours of wrestling with you tomorrow. Thank you everybody for watching or listening to this. I'm used to Ring Post Radio. Thank you everybody for listening to this month's episode of The Ballot. Like Scotty said, if you've not heard the past episodes of The Ballot, we have one about Zack Sabre Jr., we have one about the Usos, Kento Miyahara, and now Mr. Cody Rhodes. So we'll have one next month talking. Well, next one, actually, I don't have the things planned, but I know what it's going to be about. And there's a good chance, there is a strong chance possibly, if I get my act together, that we will have about maybe 2, maybe even 3 episodes of The Ballot next month, if you can believe it. If I get my act together. But we'll find out, I guess, next month. So join us, patreon.com/countouppod next month there. Scotty, anything to plug before we go? I'll let you get your plugs in here if you need. All
right, follow at Scott E Wrestling on Twitter/X. Check out Ring Post Radio every Sunday morning around 9:30. Maybe other times if me and Ryan ruin that.
Sure,
which we do from time to time.
Sure,
but most of the time, or you can get it anywhere you get your podcast. Check out Stardom Road as well on the Count Out Podcast Network if you want to get into the history of Stardom. I know that's of interest of a lot of people these days. And check out the 5-Star Joshi Show, where I talk about the current events of Joshi Wrestling each and every week. Here's something pretty big's coming up soon. Might be a good time to check it out.
Thank you again, Scotty, for coming on to The Ballot.
Thank you. Wait, should we sing Cody's song to end this?
Do you have it queued up?
Crowd is here, about to blow, ready for me to start. I'm just kidding. End the show.
Bye, everybody.
Oh!
So dumb.
Thank you. Well, I gotta kind of get ready to be dumb again tomorrow. We got a lot more dumb tomorrow. That's the way we roll, baby.
Countout provides a wide variety of bonus content that is right at your fingertips. On the Countout Patreon, our podcasts are creating bonus content exclusively for you, their listener. For only $5 a month, you can watch instant reactions to major shows, watch-alongs, early access to main feed podcasts, some fun goof and gag audio, plus shows from some of the podcasters' outside interests. It's the best way to experience all that the Countout Network has to offer. So head on down to patreon.com/countout to take part in some of the best and most fun content wrestling has to offer. Again, that is patreon.com/countout. This has been a Countout Podcast.